Hello, everyone, and welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Steve, how you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Steve, go ahead and introduce yourself and the name of your business.
Okay, my name's Steve Milligan. I own Loaded Cannon Distilled Spirits here in Bradenton, Florida, and I'm a chemical engineer by trade. I worked for a large chemical company for about 35 years, which helped me, of course, into the distilling world.
Yeah.
But I've traveled all over the world. I've lived in Korea, I've lived in Canada, I've lived in Saudi Arabia, a little bit of time in Kuwait and India as well. So it was an exciting 35 years, and now here I am in Loaded Cannon Distillery in Bradenton.
Awesome. Yeah, and talking about that, we definitely want to learn a little bit more about your journey, and we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that journey on that 35 years.
Okay, so I originally went to school to be a dentist.
Okay.
And I went back to my high school. I was class president, and I was giving a speech. And one of my teachers said, "No, Milligan, you are not a dentist. You're a chemical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it in you." He said, "Take a few classes and we'll see how it goes." So I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I was made for. I mean, I was very happy 35 years. Like I said, I moved around quite a bit. I did engineering design. I actually operated large chemical plants. I had global responsibility for some of the manufactured products in that company, and rose to a pretty good level in the company, and became very versatile, I would say, as an employee. And a lot of those skills that I learned as a chemical engineer, of course, translate directly into the distillery, because the tool sets are very similar. The only difference is that in the distillery, you're dealing with live creatures being yeast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeast ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So
That's awesome. Now, you were going to, thinking about being a dentist, but then once you had that taste of chemical engineering, you just gravitated to it forever. Was it a specific thing about it that, grabbed hold of you and made you stay in it for so long?
I think engineers are very forward thinkers. They think very logically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way my mind works anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But explaining some of the things we see in everyday life, and, some of the ways we look at things from a mathematical standpoint, it's certainly, that's kind of the way my mind went. And it was very difficult translating that into a distillery in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
because the customer is much closer here than they are in the chemical world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Now, you had a successful career, 35 years in the industry, rose up high, had global responsibility, but then you decided to go into being, a distillery. Steve, was there a particular event that happened that made you burn the ship and go all in on your distillery business?
My wife claims it was a midlife crisis.
Okay.
But no, I got back from Saudi Arabia and
Mm-hmm.
came here to Florida, and my company asked me to consult for a couple of years, and I did. And during the consulting, it gave me a lot of opportunity to think about things and what I want to do in the future. My brother-in-law's family owns a brewery and distillery in Huntsville, Alabama, which is quite large. And so I spent a lot of time there, and I learned kind of how things work in the distillery world. He gave me two bits of advice. His first advice was, however much money you think you're going to need, triple it. And the second bit of advice was, whatever you want to do, don't do it. So being the kind of person I am, I took that as a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to open up Loaded Cannon, which unfortunately opened right in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
So our direction was to make hand sanitizer,
Mm-hmm.
and we made hand sanitizer, and people felt obligated to buy our product. We were giving away the hand sanitizer, and people were coming in and buying our product like crazy.
Okay.
So we didn't necessarily see the dip that everybody else saw in COVID. we actually saw a little bit of an increase.
Okay, okay. That's not now. When are those similar chemical components when it comes to the hand sanitizer and the alcohol?
Well, most hand sanitizers predominantly are alcohol.
Okay.
We do add a few other things, hydrogen peroxide, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There were guidelines that we had to follow when we made the hand sanitizer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things that people needed, and there wasn't enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
And distilleries all around the United States pitched in and did their part to make sure people had safe, clean hands.
Oh, okay, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing that. That's a behind the scenes thing that I would have never had any idea, that the direct correlation between a distillery and the hand sanitizer. So you got the hand sanitizer going, that helped to prop up the business through that tough time of 2020. Now let's learn a little bit more about those spirits that you are making. Tell us a little bit about it.
We make approximately 35 different products.
Mm-hmm.
Our number one seller is jalapeno vodka.
Mm-hmm.
We make vodkas, we make rums, we make gins, we make whiskeys. We have a 4-year bourbon that we make, which I'm very proud of. It's won several awards.
Mm-hmm.
We have very flavored products as well. So, for instance, spiced rum, jalapeno vodka, blueberry vanilla vodka, salted caramel whiskey,
Mm-hmm.
Lapsang Souchong whiskey. So when anybody comes in the front door of our distillery, and they give me a challenge, hey, can you make this? Can you make that? I take that very personal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I try my best to give them a product that they're really going to like and they're going to come back for time and time again.
Is it one of those things where you have your product now where it is being distributed locally, or is it an online thing? Tell us a little bit more about how we were be able to get it.
So Florida is a 3-tier state,
Okay.
which means the manufacturer, the distributor, and the retailer cannot be in the same bucket. So I have to sell my product through a distributor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I might be politically incorrect by saying this, but the distributors are really the weak link in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I sign on with the distributor, that ties me directly to them.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't go out and actively try to sell our product, they can just sit on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I literally can't distribute myself. There's some states that allow that, and that's one of the things that I've been pushing for here in Florida, is to allow us to self-distribute. Unfortunately, the distributors are the one that have the money and the power, and things aren't going to change anytime soon, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that is the hardest part about operating a distillery or a brewery as well, is that how do you get into distribution? Will your distributor support you? Will your distributor help you grow? How many products do they have there that they'll compete with you? So we've actually gone through 5 distributors
Okay.
in my 6 years. The last 2 didn't pay me on time. So, I'm putting a product out there and I'm giving it to them. They're selling it, they're making money, but they don't pay me back.
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one there.
That is a tough one.
Yes.
There's really no way that I've figured out how to fix that yet.
Okay. Okay.
Changing the law.
Now, do you have a storefront where people can come in, or is that allowed?
Oh yeah, we have a tasting room. If you went back 6 or 7 years ago, you could not sell through the tasting room, and you could not sell cocktails.
Okay.
Then a little bit after that, the law changed, which allowed us to sell, I believe it was 2 bottles per person per year, which was opening up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way the law works is it allows us to sell cocktails. It allows us to sell bottles up to a certain limit, which is a very high limit. And so it's opened up quite a bit for us. And I don't believe if the law had not been changed, would we be able to survive right now.
Yeah, it seems like you do know a lot about the law, so I'm going to ask something surrounding it. Why do you think that there are such harsh limitations on it? Is it safety, to make sure the product you're creating is safe for the people, or what is it?
That's some of it, but it goes back to Prohibition, right?
Okay.
During Prohibition, after it was after Prohibition was vetoed or taken out, the government decided that, hey, if we don't want this to get out of hand, so we're going to impose 3-tier systems on the states.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's state by state. So Prohibition is really what drove that, people to have to go through the 3-tier system. And unfortunately, anytime you put a system like that in place,
Mm-hmm.
one of those three or one of the entities is going to manage all the power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Our particular case, it's the distributor. For instance, when I sell a product, I'm not guaranteed any return.
Okay.
However, the distributor is guaranteed 30%, and the retailer is guaranteed 20 to 25%. So, anytime you're in that kind of system, one of those entities is going to get more power, and it's going to stay in that hand. There's no way they're going to turn that power over unless there's a legislative action.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Now, that's definitely some heavy talk, but business owners do need to understand that, certain industries are going to have different rules, different laws, and you have to navigate through them. And right now you are trying to do your best to get past all of those things and get the products out there. But I do want to talk about the products and lighten it up a little bit. I want to learn a little bit more about this jalapeno vodka. Now, how did you come across that, and how did that mixture come together?
So we were doing a lot of Bloody Marys, and we were doing Moscow Mules with regular vodka.
Mm-hmm.
And one day somebody came to me and said, this would be a lot better if you'd spice it up a little bit, maybe add a little jalapeno.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, listen, I think I'm going to try to develop a jalapeno vodka. And I worked with a couple of my resources that for companies here locally that do some work for me. And we came up with this jalapeno vodka, which is a very sweet heat.
Okay.
I mean, it goes down very easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a versatile mixer. It goes into a Bloody Mary extremely well. It goes into a Moscow Mule, which we call a Lakewood Ranch Mule over here.
Okay.
It's also a very good straight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the local restaurants in town was actually selling it in shot glasses, throwing an oyster in it and calling it the Viagra Special.
I like that. I like that. I knew that was going to be a fun topic, talking about the jalapeno vodka.
Now, one of the things that most people don't realize, I guess, is that when you start up a distillery,
mm-hmm.
The products that you can make quick are things like vodka and rum and stuff. But all the barrel aged, all the aged products, you got to wait 2 to 4 years for those.
Okay.
So when you first start up, you're selling whatever you can, vodka, rum, but it's all positioning yourself 4 years, 2 years down the road,
mm-hmm.
when those other products become available. We just released our 4-year bourbon about a year ago. And I can tell you, it is outstanding.
And looking at the future like that, like you explained, I guess I never thought about that lag time because they have to age. Yeah. How many barrels do you make, or how many did you make on the hopes that it would be fine for 4 years?
We've got about 250 barrels of inventory right now.
Okay.
And those barrels are primarily 53 gallons, 30 to 53 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a bit of product.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you got your fingers crossed, because 2 years from now, who knows what it's going to taste like?
Okay.
Very luckily, we have never had a bad barrel.
Okay.
All of our barrels that we've opened up have been good, high quality product.
Mm-hmm.
We don't blend. The big distilleries, they tend to blend alcohols to get the desired taste. Everything we do is pretty much a single barrel release.
Mm-hmm.
So there is going to be some variability.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand, is when you're dealing with the craft distillery, you're going to get some variability.
Yeah. It's not going to be that just mainstream, everything's the same type product, because you putting a little bit more care into it. It's not just a manufacturing process, where you just repeat. There are different aspects to it, because again, it's a craft thing. Now, as far as with the barrels in themselves, is it a specific wood that you utilize, or is that a trade secret?
No, it's for bourbon, it has to be American oak. So
Okay.
There's very specific rules. I could go and I would bore you ad nauseum.
Okay.
But but one thing I really want to make sure I emphasize here today
Mm-hmm.
is that the most important thing of running a distillery is the engagement with the people that walk through the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Our motto is when you come in that front door, you're the most important person in the world. And when you walk out, you're a friend.
Okay.
And so our interaction with the customer at the front office is is truly an effort for us to get to know that person, to get to understand that person, and to get that person to know and understand and like us. And we've been very successful with that. Our ratings are 4.95 over the last 6-7 years, and we put a lot of emphasis on that because I mean we're not selling alcohol, we're selling fun, we're selling a engagement with the customers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We do a lot to make sure that they feel that they're wanted here and that we've got something for them.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the next segment of the show because you've talked a lot about your journey being a chemical engineer for 35 years, traveling the country, having to deal with global situations. You have had to go through building a business in 2020. Sounds like there's a lot of regulations and laws surrounding your situation. And through all of that, you have still been able to acquire and nurture business skills that have helped you to be successful. Do you mind sharing with the audience some of those additional business skills or best practices that you've put in place that maybe they can use to push towards some success?
Well, I mean, I think that the most important one there, like I said a little bit earlier, is the engagement with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever forget who's paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your bookkeeper. It's the customer that walks in that door.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing. You've got to be able to, in a business like ours, you've got to be able to track the products. You've got to understand the products, and you've got to make sure that you're focusing on the right things. If a product is not selling, then you either need to upgrade it or you need to figure out what you need to do to make it sell it. There's we're very highly regulated, as you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to understand the regulations. You need to make sure you know what you're dealing with. Understand your employees. Make sure your employees understand what your end goal is. Make sure that they understand what you believe we need to do to get there. And they're part of that equation as well. Don't ever forget your employees are your most important asset. The other thing that I'll kind of go back to the beginning of when we started the distillery, being a chemical engineer, there's a whole lot of things you want to go do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have it this way, I want to have it that way. And what you need to understand is that there's some things that are good to have, and there's some things that are must-haves. And a lot of those good to haves, do those later on.
Okay.
Do those later on because
mm-hmm.
When you start up a new business, and most people will tell you this, it's going to take 5 to 6 years to get you on track.
Mm-hmm.
And in those 5 and 6 years, you can learn an awful lot. But we're still kind of at that point. We're starting to turn up right now.
Okay.
Our business has started picking up. We're in a very unique market here in Florida. There's a lot of snowbirds. And so when we hit the summer, when most people are going, oh, the business is really picking up,
mm-hmm.
our business drops off.
Okay.
And so one of the main goals we have is how do we get that individual that's vacationing down here
mm-hmm.
to visit us? And because once they do, we think we've got them booked. Once we get them in the door, we think we've got them, right where we want them. So right in our sights. But anyways, like I said, Florida is a very unique situation, just because of the way the visitors come in and out, the way the snowbirds act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome sharing that because, having the engagement of the client or the customer, is key to everything that's going to help you, especially in that industry with repeat business. But more importantly, you have to take care of your employees. That is something that a lot of people, don't think about, making sure, because if they're not either serving the clients correctly or, looking at your screen back there in the chemistry lab doing what they're supposed to be doing correctly, that could cause problems. So it's important for you to make sure that you take care of them. And I definitely appreciate you sharing and highlighting that about your business and the distillery. And, we've talked a lot about business and your journey. I want to take a few seconds to talk about Steve. So let's just say that now that the 4-year aged bourbon is coming out, things are about to just continue to skyrocket through. You're going to find a way to strengthen up those distributors so they can get their mind right. And let's just say that time and money is not an issue at all. What is it that Steve would do with his time?
I would spend more time with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I would make sure that I spend enough time with my children as well.
Okay.
Because we have 5.
Okay.
And, I like to travel. I like to golf. I like to fish. A lot of those things I like to do, I'm not able to do right now because of the business.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, if I had unlimited resources, my wife and I would travel to places we hadn't been yet.
Mm-hmm.
Always wanted to go to Ireland.
Okay.
Haven't been there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much it. I mean, get out and see a little bit more of the world. I've been doing it through the chemical company that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same as traveling around with your wife or your children and trying to establish better relationships with them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Now, what is your favorite body of water to fish on? Is it a river, stream, a lake, out there in the ocean? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I would have to say I live on the water here in Bradenton.
Mm-hmm.
So I love getting out. I have a boat, and right on my dock in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to go fish in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay.
Right off Anna Marie Island in that area. It's pretty, very beautiful.
Okay.
And I mean, if you don't even catch a thing, it's still a great time because it's as beautiful as it can be.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. What is the biggest fish you've caught out there?
Oh, I've caught some pretty big reds.
Okay. Okay.
15, 17-pound reds.
Ooh.
Caught some pretty good snooks.
Uh-huh.
A couple grouper. And, if you ever meet my wife, don't bring up the boat because I've spent so much time at work, I don't get a chance to go out in the boat very often.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an anchor right now. But
I got you. Well, you get to use it. Like you said, you're pushing through. You're doing what is required to make this business successful. And you understood going into it, it was going to take a little bit of time because your product had to age, to get there. And I think that you're getting there. So maybe it won't be such an eyesore because you'll have a little bit more time to get out there on it soon. Now, if the people that are watching today or the people down there in Florida want to see the distillery or learn more about you, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, Steve?
Well, they can come here, of course. We're at 3115 Lakewood Ranch Boulevard, Suite 110 in Bradenton, Florida. They can call us. Our number is 941-900-1482. Or they can write me. That's Steve M. at loadedcannonspirits.com. I would always encourage them to go to our webpage. There's a whole lot of information there about what we do, what we don't do, and how they can enjoy themselves for the tour. One of the things we do that is pretty unique, it's a tour of the distillery,
mm-hmm.
and it goes into great depth, but it also engages the customer with trivia questions. And, some of these are about presidents and drinking.
Okay.
Where did some of these sayings come from that we have with drinking?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that way we engage people. We let them have a little bit of fun, and we tell them a lot of history about distilling and a history about barrels and things like that. Most of the people who come through here say it's probably the best tour they've ever had.
Okay. Bradenton, Florida. So if anyone is out and about in that area, please take some time to go and visit Steve. Sounds like you're going to have a great time. I know the chemical compounds inside of his mixtures are correct. If y'all don't see that setup right there to know that he's put it together correctly, then y'all ain't looking. Now, Steve, we truly do appreciate you coming on the show today. We know that it's not always easy for our guests to share. So at this particular segment, we always honor our guests by giving them the last word. So please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
Well, I mean, I get back to, I took a little bit of a leap in faith going into a distillery, and make sure that if you do something like that, you're prepared. You talk to the right people. Um, you may think you know it all. I did, of course, but I didn't. And so you have to reinitiate yourself with the technology, make sure you understand it. Um, you put together your business plan. We haven't talked about a business plan yet, but a business plan for a distillery or a business like ours is probably the most critical document that you'll ever have in your hands, because it outlines what I want to do, how I want to do it, and it tells investors or customers this is what this company is all about. And the business plan is not set in concrete until it's set in concrete. What I mean by that is, you can go over with lawyers, you can go over with friends, family, cohorts. You can tweak that a little bit, and please do that, because the business plan that you put together initially, I can guarantee you, will not be right until you get a lot of input from other associates and stuff like that. So pre-work is critical. Make sure your employees are loyal. If you've got employees that are a problem, you need to deal with them immediately. The bartender I have here right now has been with me for a little over 6 years, and her and I can almost complete each other's sentences. That's how understandable we are with each other. But I would have to say the most important thing about doing a business like mine is the pre-work, is the upfront. Everything else will take care of itself at the end, as long as you stay on top of it. Does that help?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Like I said, it's one of those things where entrepreneurs are always at different parts of their journey. And we love having guests on like you that are okay with sharing some of those ups and the downs. That way, those are just the ideal thing where, you learn from someone else's situation. So, what you shared today has been perfect. And we truly do appreciate you coming on the show today.
Oh, I've absolutely loved it, and I had a great time talking to you. I hope I gave the audience a pretty good view of what it's like to own a distillery, and what they need to do when they're thinking about going into a small business.
Yes, sir. So thanks again for coming on the show. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.
Take care.